Welcome back to another installment of Trader Development Tutorial Learning Education, whatever we want to call this series. Today we're going to be looking at global textures. So I have this wall full of space crates or space walls. I don't know what you necessarily want to call these. This is all the exact same node. And you'll notice we have some variation in the textures. This is done using global textures. So we see that this and this both have the same texture, and this and this are also the same texture. This is using a 4x4 texture. So essentially, I can pick any one of these nodes, count up, count over, and back down 4, and this is one sheet, essentially, or we could start at this. I don't know specifically what it is actually, but every fourth texture on these nodes will be the same. So 1 or 0, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it repeats every 4. Up, down, all directions. Coming out, we'll see the same thing as well. Those actually all look very similar in that row. So that's let's pick. There we go. Let's pick a row where we'll get a yellow one. There we are. So these actually look all identical. There's probably a slight variation in the noise on them because I usually, and I know some people are going to hate me for this, but I usually throw some HSV noise over these just to give them a little extra variation. So looking around here, all of the bricks we see are using global textures. So this wall here, these bricks are all slightly different. You can see some variation in the colors there. I think this is quartz, but whatever that brick is, these bricks here, these here, this stuff, it's all using global textures. So we have a slight variation. The wood textures here are also using global textures. But enough about these using global textures. Let's take a look at how to make them. So we got to jump over into Gimp. All right, so that's kind of a lie. You don't necessarily have to use Gimp. You can use any image editor you want. Gimp's just the editor of my choosing. So we're going to start with a 32 pixel image here. This would be a single node, and this would be mapped to all faces on it. Sorry about some of the flickering. I just have to do a capture size or a capture setting where you actually see all of the windows. So this will be short-lived. So we're just going to change our canvas size to 128 by 128, and we will resize there. And then I can actually delete that background layer. And we are going to duplicate layer and then move it over. I always like to merge down right away and then duplicate. And we will just repeat that process over and over. And I goofed on that last one. Or I goofed on the, no, there we go. All right, merge down, duplicate. And then we'll just do this. Well, I guess technically twice marks will duplicate this last one, or we'll merge it. So we have one single 128 by 128 image. And now if you want, you can go ahead and throw some guides in. So that would obviously be at 32, 64, and 96. So you can see where all of your individual node edges will be. And this is important to a degree. It really depends on what sort of texture you're making. If it's something that should be seamless, where you don't want to see edges, this is important. Something like that spaceship crate or whatever texture, there were black edges around all of them, so that one didn't matter quite so much. Let me just switch this back to Gimp real quick so we lose some of that flickering. So now we have a 32 by 32 image, but every tile is the exact same. Oh, and of course now you can't see this. So I'm going to add some HSV noise. I don't know how well that's going to pick up with compression, but you can see there's a little bit of noise being added to the mix. Another thing you might want to do, depending on the texture, is put some What do you call those things? What's the word I'm thinking of? Like, because this is dirt, like some stones or sticks. Not singularities. There is a word to describe this, and I can't think of it. Well, anyway, you might want to add in like some pebbles on a stone texture, or maybe, unfortunately, you can't see me picking colors because of stuff. You know, might want to throw a stone in. Or maybe over here, I don't know, we'd throw in a stick. So I would need a brown color. You know, just, you can't really tell that that's there, can you? That's all right, just some variations. One thing you might want to do, rather than painting those directly on, is go ahead and create a new layer. And then on the layer, you can paint your stick. That is an amazing looking stick. Let me put my little stone back in over here. And yeah, you can do whatever. I'm just an example. Maybe you'd want to throw a little weed in, you know? So we'll just grab a green. I could get something kind of greenish. A dark green, yeah. You know, I'm going to go to a paintbrush for this, and I'm going to change that to a brush size of 2. So I get some soft edging. Yeah, just a little sprig of green in there. Or maybe a little darkening in the brown. You honestly can't even tell. Oh, because the opacity is way low. Okay, now if I scribble a lot, you can see it. Okay, well, let's go back to the green and repaint those in. Because, okay, well, you still pretty much can't see it. Wow. Oh, because I'm not back to the green. That's why that's not working. Let's try that again. There we go. Oh, yes, much better. Just, you know, some little weeds or something growing on the surface. Maybe throw a couple little leaves on that. Or maybe you want to put in a fissure in the surface, i.e. a crack, something like that. Or maybe you have a long chunk of stone that's kind of visible through, you know, whatever. Spice it up a bit. That's the whole point of this. So yeah, we'll say that this is good. I would probably never actually use this, but as an example, it's fine. Then we are just going to go ahead and export it. So export as. In this case, I'm putting it into the levels mod, but it could go into whatever. And I'm just going to call this levels underscore dirt underscore 1. Let's actually do underscore 0. Export, save, all that good stuff. Now we jump over to the code, and you will see just how easy it is to register this node. So here we are in Atom, and this is the function that we use to register a basic node. Super easy, easiest thing in the world. So you literally just grab that one line, and I'm going to go ahead, create a new file, which I've already created. So our name is just going to be dirt underscore 0. That should be inside of parentheses. All of these should be. Our description is just going to be dirt. The sound, I think there's a dirt sound. Let's check by looking in the sounds directory. We have gravel, we have grass, there's hard metal, sand, snow, water, and wood. Oh, dirt, yeah, there's dirt. Okay, perfect. Those sounds are just ripped straight from MTG. And then volume you can leave at its default value. I'm cocking my head funny because the handle from the tripod blocks that portion of the screen. Yeah. Volume, if you don't set, will default to 1. I'm going to go ahead and put it to 0.5. Should it be 0.5? I don't know. We'll see what happens when we launch Mindtest and look at our brand new node. So let's do that. I just need to switch over to there we go, to a Mindtest window. And now we have dirt. And now if I place this brand new dirt node, we'll see that we get, it's a very noisy dirt. Probably could do with some blurring on it to make it not quite as hard. But you can see here in a 4x4 image, we have our 2 stones. We've got our little bits of greenery, whatever they are, that weird little stick things there. And if we place some nodes coming up off of them at any point, all of our edges still mesh together pretty well. That's what I was talking about here. So because these nodes all have that dark edge, the inside could be completely different and it wouldn't matter. But like these stone or these these wood tiles, see how you want to make sure that your individual tiles still tile together so the textures line up. That's why. And especially if I just grab one of these and then place it here, you'll see that our textures go a little wonky on this wood pattern because I have a dark red wood here with no wood coming into it. Now I do though, and it does match. But now this end, if I put a wall there, it just goes to nothing. In this particular instance, I don't actually care about that because who has walls built like this? Nobody. It's just for floors. So I'm not worried if these don't match up well because you wouldn't, well, hopefully, you would never be building walls out of this wood texture because it doesn't make sense to use as a wall because that's not what it is. But the dirt should match up in all directions, and it does, which is perfect. So let's take a quick look at how this function actually runs, or how it works, I guess, and explain a little more in detail how all that stuff works, because I didn't really explain that too well. All right, so back in Atom, and this is the function, as I alluded to previously. And here's how it actually works. So we pass the 4 variables to this function, the name, which is used in 2 places. That's going to be the name of the node. So it'll be levels : and then whatever the name is. So dirt_0. That name is also the same as your texture. So whatever your texture is going to be called is going to be your node name. Keep that in mind. You don't have an option to do a different texture name and a different node name. The names don't really matter so much because you have descriptions and you can use whatever you want as a description. When you search, it searches in description and in node names, so you should still be able to find what you're looking for. Your description, of course, is the description. That's the only place it's used. It can be anything you want. The sound, well, that's just what footstep sound it gets. And then the volume, as I said, if you don't define a value, defaults to 1. But if you find that the node's too loud or too quiet, you can tweak it that way, which is why I added the value there. So all it's doing is registering your normal node. It's using the tiles world alignment, a scale of 4. So that just means it takes whatever texture you feed it and it splits it into 16 pieces, 4 and 4. Oops, just bumped the microphone. So you have 4 rows, 4 columns, and then it just places them in the world accordingly. The inventory image, this is kind of a workaround because Mindtest just doesn't do it by itself yet when you're using world alignment. So if this line didn't exist, it would show a texture with a node as a 32 or a 128 pixel texture on 3 sides. So you would see all 16 different sprites on that face. So this basically just doing an inventory cube, and it's picking the first square in a sheet that's divided into a 4x4 grid, and it does that 3 times to make the cube image. It's kind of annoying, but you don't really deal with it because it's just inside of a function, so it doesn't matter. And then that also registers all of your stairs and slabs, and they also use the world scale. Same with the sound, yada, yada, yada. No big surprises there. So I do all of them in the levels mod, but if you want to load node stairs and slabs with same sectors on all the sides, you can use this function in another mod. So if you are putting all of your content into a mod called building blocks, perhaps, or if you want to put all your content in a mod with your name, whatever you want to use, it doesn't matter. Just add into the modconf file that it depends on the levels, and then you can use that function, and you can register them all, and you can see, if I can find it, here we go. I've got a bunch of different stones, a bunch of wood, a whole bunch of sci-fi stuff. So it makes it really easy to load these different nodes. We don't care about groups on any of the nodes, as you see here. The only group that exists on these nodes is breakable, and that's just so the hammer can break them. There's no other tool that does any damage other than the hammer, so that's the only group it needs. Yeah, and that's basically it. So good luck and have fun creating your very own nodes for the Traitor game. Of course, information as far as the not a bug Git repository and all that good stuff is on my website, which is linked down in the video description. And I look forward to seeing what content you create.